Good morning. Good morning. I feel so lucky to be here with you guys on St. Patrick's Day. And I'm excited to share with you a little snippet of my journey of working in the entertainment industry here in Los Angeles. And after my talk, I will definitely open it up for Q&A. That way, if you have any questions about my career, or if there's anything specific I can help you with your career, hi, come on in, that's all right. I'll be more than happy to help with that. So let's see, I thought it would be interesting for you to get to know me in a more non-traditional sense. And what I mean by that is I have never been homeless. I've never had cancer. I have never had any major car accidents. I have never had any, life-threatening surgeries. I have 3 beautiful, healthy children that my husband and I had no problems conceiving. Let's see, what else can I tell you? Both of my parents are still alive. And I currently drive one of my dream cars. And yet, I still complain. Can you guys relate to that?
Yes.
Right? Where you have so many things to be grateful for, but you still have a tendency to complain about what's not working in your life. Maybe it's something in your past that you're ashamed of, or just a difficult time that you're going through right now. Maybe things aren't working right in your career path or your personal life, and you're just having a difficult time, and sometimes we tend to complain. But this conference today is about making the most of your life, right? And in order to do that, I think one of the top ways you do that is to be grateful. And not necessarily in a general sense, but really the actual moments that you're in. Every moment that you're in that's positive, to be grateful for that moment, as opposed to focusing so much on the negativity. So I had an opportunity to give a TEDx talk. How many of you watch TED Talks? I love them. So I had an opportunity to give a TEDx talk on create your own yes when you keep hearing no. So what I'm going to talk to you today about is I'm going to dive into that topic a little bit more and focus on how to redirect the rejection that you may be experiencing. And, in a nutshell, for me, I believe there's 3 ways to do that. 3 ways. And I'll give you examples of each. The first deals with being entrepreneurial. The second deals with transitional. And the third is instructional. And so I'll kind of break down each of those categories. So from the entrepreneurial side, that may mean you need to become more of an entrepreneur, or if that's not your career path, becoming an entrepreneur, you may have to take on some entrepreneurial traits within whatever profession that you're in, so that you can get to where it is you're trying to go. So entrepreneurial. So for me, I think one of the most challenging times for my career in trying to redirect the rejection was producing my first feature film. So I had a screenplay that I wrote, and I wanted to see it as a movie. And I got told no just so many times. It was just unbearable. Now, I didn't go to film school. So I actually, my degree is in industrial operations engineering. And I never worked as an engineer, though. I actually met my husband there, so that worked out. I remember my mom, when she first dropped me off, I went to University of Michigan, and when she dropped me off on campus, she said, you have 2 purposes. The first is to find a husband, and the second is to graduate, and in that order. And I was like, what kind of mom do I have? It's I'm getting a husband and graduating. But nonetheless, I guess she's a pretty good one because I did both, so that worked out. And we've been married for 15 years. So I moved, so after college I graduated, and then I pretty much moved to Los Angeles, literally with the script, Hollywood Chaos, that I'd written in the backseat of at the time I had a 1994 Geo Tracker. And it was literally in the backseat, and I was like, I'm going to move to LA, and this movie's going to get made. I'm going to get this movie sold. So I moved to Los Angeles. I didn't know one single person here. And just tried to kind of figure out everything. And so I worked very hard. Anyone that knows me, I'm a very, diligent. I have a lot of hard work, ethic. I have a, strong work ethic. And I'm all about hustling, right? And doing whatever is required to get to where it is you're trying to go. But even with all of that, with all of my engineering degree and all of my hustle and my enthusiasm for what I was doing and my passion, I still was told no, over and over and over again for about 10 years. So I went for 10 years with the same script. Maybe it was revised and got better over time with notes and things like that. But essentially I went for 10 years with no, and during that time I was working in the industry. I had, I worked at MGM and for the Grammys. I mean, I was working. I worked as a talent agent and casting director. I was doing a lot of cool jobs and meeting cool people and celebrities and working with high power players and things like that. But at the end of the day, they told me no. I sent my script to literary agents and managers, to producers. I had meetings with all kinds of executives. And I had some maybes and almost, but just at the end of the day, it was just no. And so one day, I just decided, why is it that I feel the need to be validated by Hollywood, I'll say, for lack of a better term? Why do I feel the need to be validated by someone? By power players. What is it about it? Do I feel like I can't do this on my own? And I just questioned that, and then I said, no, I can do this. I mean, I've done everything else, right? Like, why can't I do this? So I made a decision. I'm going to make this movie myself. I'm not going to wait on anyone to give me the opportunity, because I've been told no so much. If I keep waiting, I might go another 10 years. And then I'll be at 20 years, still just with this script and trying to talk to people, trying to get it made. And so I decided, and within about 6 months, I basically set a date for when I wanted to shoot the movie, and told everyone I knew, which I knew a lot of people, this is what I'm doing. And it's really interesting because once you tell people what you're doing, and you know a lot of people are like, oh, so she's not gonna wait around. Oh wait, maybe I'll help her now because she's not waiting. So I told people what I wanted to do, and I did a crowdfunding campaign. I talked to all kinds of investors and just a lot of different people. And in about 6 months, I got my first check in, and then they just kind of trickled in after that. And I ended up being able to produce a movie under the SAG ultra-low indie budget, which is under $200,000. So it was a SAG film. Everyone was paid, like all the actors were paid. Some of our crew donated their time. Some of them got paid just depending on what their role was and how much they were involved. But it was definitely and I raised about, I think it was about $65,000 in in-kind donations to be able to do it. So on top of the actual money that I raised, then I had the donations, which is really, really instrumental. And so after I produced the movie, once you produce the movie, you want to get, when it's an independent movie, meaning it doesn't have a studio attached to it, you want to get it sold. So I was able to get it sold to a distributor, Breaking Glass Pictures. They bought my movie, and then after the movie was bought, then it aired on Hulu. And then it's actually, that was like a couple years ago. It's actually this year going to be airing on the Urban Movie Channel. So once you have a film that gets purchased, it can continue to live and continue to, bring in basically passive income, just depending on, what type of film you have. So that's where the film is now. And so it's, one sort of check off the list. And sort of an interesting thing in doing that is that the next movie I decided to make, I didn't even bother to go after, trying to see if someone wanted to help me make it. I said, I'm going to do it again. Why not do it again? So my recent film is a documentary called Hush. It stands for Hollywood's Uncovered Sexual Harassment. And all of my projects, you can buy them on DVD at Amazon. So Hush is about Hollywood's uncovered sexual harassment. And so I shot that movie. So it's a feature documentary. I did that in about 3 months. From the concept of the idea I had at Christmas time after the Bill Cosby thing had happened, and then just decided to do this, and then did that, finished that project, and then PBS bought it, not for a whole lot of money, but they did pick it up, and it aired twice during, just National Sexual Assault Month, and so they did that last year. And that was a really instrumental project because I did it before the whole Me Too movement and all of that. And so when that happened, journalists and media are looking for, people to speak on that topic and become sort of a, not necessarily an expert, but someone that can just speak to the topic who works in the industry and not necessarily an outsider. And so I've got a lot of different opportunities in terms of media and just connecting with different people to just further educate people about, why this issue is so important, not just in Hollywood, but that's where I work, but of course in all professions, it's an issue. And so that was my second project. But that's a really, for me, a really very specific example in which, I was able to redirect all of the rejection that I was experiencing as an entrepreneur. And so, like I said, depending on what kind of work it is you do, it may not be, I don't believe that everyone is supposed to be an entrepreneur necessarily. Because to be an entrepreneur from, just creating a business from the ground up and growing it is just seriously no joke. It is a lot of effort required into, it's easy to start it, but to sustain it over year after year after year when, you can't pay your bills or, depending on what your financial situation is, whether you're married or you're single or, all these things get factored in. So I don't think that everyone needs to be an entrepreneur, but I do believe that everyone should take on entrepreneurial traits. And so sometimes in your profession, whether you're a surgeon or, literally like a healthcare professional, whatever it is, I think it's important that you take on certain entrepreneurial traits because that allows you to not just completely rely on someone to, give something to you or to give you that opportunity. So many times, so many examples of mentors that I have told me multiple times, they were in a position and they really wanted to have another position, but it didn't exist. And so they would go to their boss and say, hey, this is what my title I really want it to be, and this is what I want to do. And they would just be like, okay. And they would just sort of gradually start working towards doing it. And then their boss could see, oh, I see what you're saying, what you want to do. And they would be able to they created a position that wasn't on LinkedIn. It wasn't on, Indeed.com. It was something that they created for themselves. So even though she had a stable, normal 9-to-5, non-entrepreneurial job, she still had to become very entrepreneurial to get that job that she currently works in today. She's a vice president at CBS. So that's so that's the first step in basically redirecting your rejection is deciding if you're going to become an entrepreneur, or if you need entrepreneurial traits, if you need to sort of add that to what you're trying to accomplish. The second is the transition, deals with being transitional. And so by that I mean you may decide within your same industry that you're going to go from one thing to another, but it's still within the same world. So for me, I work in the entertainment industry. So I worked as a talent agent for a couple of years, and then I went over to becoming a casting director. So I quit my job as a talent agent and went to become a casting director. And those worlds are similar. They're in the same field, but I'm sure many of you know the jobs, but for those who don't, so a talent agent is someone that represents actors or writers. Well, an agent in general represents actors, writers, producers. As a talent agent, I represented actors and some musicians who were looking to break into acting or further their career in the media space. And so you're basically representing them and submitting them for different opportunities, paid opportunities for them to act, whether it's in a film, a TV, a commercial, a play. I mainly focused on film and television, but it can go the gamut of opportunities in terms of public. It can even be public speaking, depending on what it is that particular talent wants to do as a performer. So I worked as a talent agent for 2 years, and in doing that, I experienced again. I just do not like rejection. Okay, but I experienced again a lot of rejection. And this time it was even harder because as a talent agent, you're representing your clients and you constantly have your clients checking in with you, asking, what can they do to get more auditions? Or for those that are getting the auditions, they weren't booking the work. But I believed in their talent, but I was still getting told no by casting directors, even we're saying no. And so, so through that process, like in the casting process, an actor goes out on audition, they either book the role or they don't, and then sometimes they will come very close, they'll have a callback, which is like the second audition, or they'll even become on a bail, which means they're basically up against one other person. If that person doesn't do it, then they're the one that's going to do it. So in all three of those stages, I would hear no often. There would be some great moments where clients would book, great national commercials and they make a lot of money. So of course there were some ups, but there was a lot of low points, not just for me, but how I felt about my clients' careers. And so in doing that, I decided to start meeting with casting directors. And I was meeting with them trying to figure out, okay, what can this client do to be better? They've come into your office a couple times. what can this actor do to be better? Is it different skills? Like, what is it? You brought them in, so clearly you think they're talented. Are there just not the kind of roles out there for them, or should they meet with more directors or producers, or what is it that they should be doing? So I met with just a handful. I didn't go crazy, but it was like 3 or 4 casting directors that I met with, and they gave me a lot of advice in terms of different things that some clients could be doing. And one casting director in particular really took the time out, became a mentor to me, and she was just sharing with me all these stories about her job as a casting director. And I said, you know what? I think that's where I need to be. So I'm gonna go from being a talent agent, I worked there for 2 years, to now casting. But now casting for the independent space is very entrepreneurial. You have to find your jobs. You're not working underneath a casting company that gets jobs. There are some opportunities, but that's not what I wanted to do. I really wanted to focus on the independent space, because I felt like that is where you really have a chance to give opportunity to those who are coming up, and that's just a personal passion of mine, trying to help people to break through to where it is they want to go in the early stages of their career, or either not necessarily the early stages of their career, but just early in that particular field. So they may have worked in multiple industries, but they're trying something new, and so have a passion towards helping people break through that new thing that they're trying to do. So so while working as a talent agent, I decided, okay, I want to be a casting director. So I let my boss know, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. I couldn't just leave, but I was just saying, hey, I think I'm going to go into casting. And of course, she would be supportive, because it's still the same industry. So that means that, of course, I'm going to take a closer look at the clients from that agency. So of course, she was very supportive, and to this day is a great mentor to me, my old boss. And so I attended a networking event, which obviously you guys value because you're here today. And so I attended a networking event, and actually that I had put on with my nonprofit organization, which I'll talk to you a little bit later about. But I attended this networking event, and I met a producer, and her name was Tangi Miller, and she was just so instrumental in my life. And so I was just talking to her. She's an actress. Some of you may remember her from Felicity. And I was telling her I really want to be a casting director, and she was like, oh, well, I'm shooting a feature film. We're shooting in like 3 or 4 weeks, and I said, oh, I'd love to just, sit with your casting director, just be their assistant, for free. You don't have to pay me. I just want to get to know, what it is a casting director actually does, like the actual admin side, of course, the creative side. I just want to get, just get the learning experience. And she said, okay, yeah, keep in touch, blah, blah. And I was like, okay. So I sent her an email just saying, hey, it was great meeting you, blah, blah, blah. And then, like 2 days later, she called me. She said, oh, I fired my casting director. So you're going to cast my movie. And I was like, okay. I've never worked as a casting director. I was just telling you I wanted to be a casting director. I didn't say, like, dive in, like, right now. And she said, no, you worked as an agent. Like, you can do this. Like, this will be easy for you. And I was like, okay. And, it was paid. And I was like, okay. So I, jumped right in. And so my first casting job was not as a casting assistant, was as the casting director of a feature film, and I did like 30 roles, and it was a great experience. And then after doing that film for her, we had a great working relationship. I did like pretty much all her projects after that, all of her features, TV, whatever she was working on. She brought me on to do it for her, and at some point brought me on to do a little producing with her. So, and then everything else I got after that was through referrals. From that one job was, she told someone else about me, and then I took that job, and it just sort of came. There wasn't anything, I didn't really go seek casting jobs at that point. They were just kind of coming in. And so as I did more and more casting work, what I started to realize was that, as a casting director, which I still do today, I still do casting. It's very specific projects that I work on, really strong passion projects. And so as a casting director, there is some room for you to give opportunity, but you cannot fully give the opportunity, because at the end of the day, the actor is going to get the job based on, the producer or the director or the studio, depending on, what kind of project it is. And I would find situations where I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is the best actor for the role. I really believe in this person. And perhaps the director, producer, or someone on the team would say, I think this is the person, this is who they want. And, and they had their passion person, and, that person would get the role. And of course I'd be supportive and excited, because, it's a collaborative effort. So at the end of the day, it's not about having, exactly who I want. It's a team effort. So I ended up deciding, okay, so this is interesting. do I want to continue this path of casting? It was a great learning experience, and I was getting a lot of fulfillment from it, but I wasn't sure if this was 100%, where I was supposed to be. But nonetheless, that is a good example of transitioning within the same industry, right? You just kind of say, you know what, I know I studied to do this, but I think I want to go more this direction. This is not working for me. And you really have to trust your instincts when you decide to make a change. A lot of what you get in life is about trusting your instincts. And then by trust, meaning move on them. Because a lot of times we think things in our head, and we tell our friends or our family or our mom or whoever, and then we kind of talk about it, and then we kind of go, oh, and then we don't really do anything about it. So it's like trusting and then doing, putting forth the effort to do it quickly, too, because you think about things for too long, you have a tendency to just kind of stay there. One of my favorite slogans is Nike, of course, just do it. But I like to add, just do it now, because it sounds nice to feel like you're doing something, but it's really important to do it now. So that's the transition, though. So when you're trying to redirect your rejection, the first thing is deciding if you need to become an entrepreneur or gain entrepreneurial traits, right? The second is, are you dealing with transitional? Do you need to go from one career path to another within that same field? Or even if it's in a different field, there's some strong similarities. Do you need to transition there? The third is instructional. And by that I mean just gaining new skill sets entirely different from what you're doing. You're working as an engineer and you decide you want to be a lawyer. My OBGYN was a aerospace engineer before he was a doctor. Those are like two drastic careers. Okay, my husband is an aerospace engineer. I call him my rocket scientist. And so for him to be going to a doctor, that would be like, what, a doctor? That just like those are not the same worlds. Okay, but it's possible. People do it, right? So when it comes to being instructional, you have to decide, do I need to gain new skill sets entirely different from what I currently have? And do I want to go from being an accountant to, a psychologist? Those worlds are different. But maybe there's some similarities in them that you can find and try to figure out how to link your way through there, by networking and things like that. So in my career, in terms of the instructional aspect, so while I was working as a casting director, I was kind of realizing that there were some limitations because I really have a passion for giving that opportunity to people, and then you just became somewhat limited in being able to do that. And then I realized, well, it seems as if the power is really in producing. That's really where, because basically, if I bring the money to the table, who I want in the film is going to be in the film. Again, this is in the independent space, because even the studio space is very different. But in the space that I worked in. And so while I was on set, I would make an effort. Every film I was cast on, every project I was cast, that I cast for, I would always go to set. And I would use that as an opportunity, because I didn't go to film school, to learn, to become more educated, to gain new knowledge, and get the instructions that I needed in order to just have an understanding of what does a producer really do. Because outside of reading an article or kind of hearing people talk about it or watching the, like the behind the scenes, like on a movie or whatever, outside of that, I didn't really know exactly what a producer did. But by being on set as much as I could, as a casting director, you're very beloved by your cast and your crew, so everyone doesn't mind you snooping around and figuring out what you're doing. They're like, oh, she cast the film, so you just pretty much be everywhere and just kind of smile and get to know what's the boom guy doing, what's the wardrobe person doing, what's everyone doing, what's the director doing, okay, oh, there's conflict here, why is that? Just trying to understand like the dynamics of everything. And so in doing that, I was like, this is definitely for me, because I can create it. Now, of course, with being a producer, there's still a lot of rejection because you have to get the funding, but it's worth it. It's the kind of rejection that I'm willing to go for it with, because I'm able to give all that opportunity to people that I like, whether it's the cast or the crew. And so that's something that just really provides personal I get some kind of personal gratification or satisfaction from doing that. And so while being on set, I learned a great deal and got almost like going to film school. It's very hands-on, and probably more, because I talked to a lot of people that have gone to film school, and outside of actually, the physical production of doing film, you don't necessarily get the hands-on, just like for engineering. I went to school for engineering, but a lot of what I was learning wasn't necessarily the day-to-day job of what I would be doing as an engineer, or same with my husband, right? But so it's not until you actually get in that space and you start doing it, you realize, okay, wait, this is what the job is. And so when I was on set, I would gain all of that instruction and knowledge and understand, okay, this is the new skill that I would like to have. And so by going through that whole process, that is sort of the time point. When I finished, I think I did maybe a dozen or so independent feature films and like TV pilots and short films. I cast a lot of the AFI graduate thesis projects and things like that as well, in addition to like the main bulk of the feature films that I was doing. So after doing that, I said, okay, this is what I want to do, producing. And so when that happened, that time frame happened for me, that was about the same time, right, in which I was deciding, okay, I'm tired of hearing the no. So those things were happening at the same time for me. I didn't really realize it though. So it wasn't like I thought like, oh, I'm gonna produce movies, I'm gonna go to a talent agent, I'm gonna do casting, I'm gonna learn on set. It did not start that way. It wasn't something like if you were to read my bio, it looks like, oh yeah, that looks like she planned that. That looks like very linear. No, I did not plan it. It was just sort of organically happening, and things were happening at the same time, and I didn't realize that this is why it was happening, or why it was happening that way. And so I really want to encourage you too, when you feel, a sense of, rejection, or you're getting no's, or just personal things, whatever it is, it might be for a reason. So just try not to focus too much on trying to figure out what that reason is, and just focus on getting through it. Because if you spend too much time trying to figure out everything, you're just gonna just like it's just too much, right? And so it's really important to just kind of push through and say, okay, it's good to understand if you have a problem, but you just don't want to live in that negativity. We all complain. We all, we're human, so it's a part of life. But if we're really trying to make the most of our life, we can't focus on doing that. We really have to stop complaining, or at least minimize it as much as we can in order to get to where it is we need to go. And so, okay, so basically entrepreneurial, transitional, instructional, those are the three, principles or, ways in which I focus on for my own personal life, in terms of how to redirect the rejection. And I immediately go to them. So, and it has to be a massive amount of no's. I don't do this if someone tells me no, like once or twice, it's like, okay, whatever. But once you start getting like rejected over and over again, you start questioning, wait a minute, is this for me? Is this what I want? You start to kind of have that self-assessment, which is good. And so it's when you start getting massive amounts of rejection, that's when you start doing that. That's when I start going through the list. I'm not like, oh, no, you can't park here. Oh, wait, do I need to be entrepreneurial, transitional? No. Right? No. It's just when you're getting a massive amount of rejection. That's when you go into gear and say, okay, boom, 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 let me check, where do I need to go? And then start making a plan towards that. In terms of, making the most of your life, I think that another really important thing is giving back. Of course, is giving back. And, we talk about giving back in terms of like our community, and I think that's certainly a wonderful thing. But I think one of the most instrumental things that happened in my life, or transformational things, was realizing how important it is to give back in the actual area where you want to be successful when it comes to your career. So when it comes to your career, that's really important. Outside of all of my entrepreneurial things that I do, I guess this is entrepreneurial too, but this is like the main chunk of what I do, which is I run a nonprofit organization. It's a 501c3 nonprofit called Breaking in Hollywood. And I started the organization in 2005. And I started the organization at a point in my career where I felt like I had again I felt like I hit rock bottom. I felt like, what is going on? I'm out here to do this, and like, this is just not happening. I knew all these people, I'm networking. At the time, I didn't have any children, so I was able to kind of go out, and just meet people and do things, and I had a lot of freedom. So, but still things were just not happening the way in which I had planned. I thought, I have a college degree from the University of Michigan, and my life is supposed to be smooth, and it was just not that. And so that was very frustrating for me. And so I remember being on the phone with my mom, and I was just like, Mom, I'm just so depressed. I just don't, like, why am I here in LA? What am I doing? And she said, you know, what are you doing to give back? And I said, I mentor girls in my church. I do a lot of things to give back. She said, no, I'm saying, what are you doing to give back in the actual area where you want to be successful in the entertainment industry? What are you doing to give back in that? And I was like, nothing. I'm not doing anything to give back in that. So she said, well, think about that. And I was like, okay. So that weekend I did. My husband was actually out of town. He was attending, I think, a graduation for his sister in, I think it was in New York or St. Louis. But anyway, so, and when he came back, I remember he walked in the door, I was like, hi, it's good to see you, you know. And I was like, guess what? He's like, well, I was like, I started a business. He's like, oh, I was gone over the weekend? Oh, okay, I started a business. That's interesting. And I said, yeah, it's a nonprofit organization. He's like, a nonprofit? Okay, well, you haven't been working. Why is it nonprofit? Not for-profit. And so I explained, well, you can still make money, but it's a different kind of, you know, thing and things like that. And so then he was, of course, on board. And so that weekend birthed Breaking into Hollywood. And, you know, I looked online on GoDaddy for the website. I was like, oh, it's never been used, breakinghollywood.org. This is like meant to be. This is for me. So I purchased the website, and then from there, the rest is history. Here we are, you know, since 2005, standing strong, and we basically help aspiring mid-level and even, you know, very powerful people, help them sustain their career. So if they're not breaking in, it's more about sustaining your career and maintaining your success and building your success while working in the entertainment industry. And what I've learned through doing that is that, you know, while I've met so many amazing, powerful people, I mean, just a couple days ago, we had a speaker from Netflix come and talk to us about, you know, the digital marketplace and how the content creation is so important there. And so, you know, we've had agents from William Morris, from Gersh, and, you know, pretty much every single studio possible, Warner Brothers, MGM, literally just like you name it, pretty much we've had someone from that company since we started. And we've had, you know, thousands of professionals that have come through. My email list is pretty big of about 10,000 people that have come to our events from when we started in 2005. And so what I learned the most through doing that is that the most important thing is not necessarily the person who I'm speaking to. I usually moderate the event. Sometimes board members moderate. And so it's not necessarily the person that I'm speaking to. It's really about you guys. It's really about the audience. Because in the audience are smart, educated, passionate people who are in the same field, you know, who are trying to likely do similar things. And so I have found that in my own career that yes, it's important to gain knowledge and build relationships with, you know, power players, but the people that have really catapulted my life or really helped me get that opportunity, whatever it was I was seeking at that time, it was not the big power player. It was always someone else that was, lining up a path for me, whether they knew it or they didn't know, you know? And so I really encourage people to make sure that you really network today as much as you can. Yes, it's important to get inspired by the speakers, and hopefully you get a nugget of something that can help to transform your life, because just one small piece of information can just be huge for you if you allow it to be. But I think more importantly is connecting with the people in this room. I think, you know, in the next room that you go to, I think that is just so important. And just because, you know, it's part of being human, right? And just, you know, being connected to one another and finding out who someone is. And the entertainment industry is really important because someone might be an assistant today and they're an executive, you know, tomorrow. And that's really in all fields. In most fields, it's like that. There's some fields that are very niche. You're not going to be a surgeon tomorrow. But there's some fields that does not apply to. But in most of them, it can apply. Even a little girl who I used to babysit when I was like 14 or 13 is an executive at Facebook. And I'm like, wait a minute, actually, don't forget your babysitter. So you just never know how the tables can, you know, turn. And so I remember I was actually interviewed for this magazine article and because I had an opportunity to be a commentator for the Oscars and to do like the live Oscars coverage for the BBC for the BBC World News, and this was my first time doing live commentary. I do a lot of public speaking, but not live in a news sense like that, and certainly not for such a big event. So I was a little nervous, but of course, I'm a really big believer in preparation. These opportunities, if something comes to you, you take it, you do it, you say yes, and figure it out later. And so that's what I did. And so, in sort of, in doing that process, it was definitely a huge learning experience for me. But I was, again, just reminded how, the person who brought that to me wasn't necessarily someone who I knew for a long period of time. They weren't necessarily some, top, power player. And so it's just so important to realize that, how you think your career might go, it may not go. It may not go that way. You may get to where it is you're ultimately trying to go to, but sometimes it's just not a straight path there. It's not a straight path there. And so the tables definitely can turn. And so you just want to be mindful of when that's happening and make sure that you network with basically everyone around you. It's just hugely important. I have a question, actually. How many of you know at least 2 people in this room that you did not know before you came here? Does anyone know at least 2 people? Right, so no one. Okay, so that is not going to happen on my clock. Listen, okay. So take a moment right now, just really quickly, and just introduce yourself to the person on your right, left, or behind you in your area. Just find out who they are, what they do, just really quickly. So you guys know always take a moment to just, wherever you go, when you go to events like this, when you go to business and professional events, take the time to introduce yourself to the person right, because you just never know. And it's also very awkward if later you find out that the person next to you is someone quote unquote important, and you didn't bother, and then after you're like, hi, and it's like, oh yeah, mm-hmm. And you just kind of keep it moving because there's just no real genuine connection with the person. But if you have a genuine, connection with someone in the very early when you first, get to an event or when you're leaving an event, I just think it just makes it more authentic. And then a lot of times I think opportunities when they come to you, a lot of times it's through the authentic relationships that you're building over time. It's not necessarily just the right away, person you meet and then all of a sudden you get a job. Not always like that. So let's see. So I think, pretty much in a nutshell, that's my journey. My name is Angela Marie Hutchinson, and I'm very grateful for your time today. And if you have any questions about anything, I'm more than happy to answer them. If it's about myself or career, whatever you're dealing with, whatever it might be, feel free to ask. Yeah.
What was your first movie called?
My first movie is called Hollywood Chaos.
Okay.
Yeah, Hollywood Chaos, and it's on Amazon. And then my second one was called Hush.
Don't you give up, nah, nah, nah.